Hey, how you doing? Rich the Architect back here again for another Revit help video related to creating the basics of family creation. So in the last episode, we talked about utilizing reference planes to help with the parametric parameters of width and depth on an element in their geometry. So just to kind of do a quick review, if you want to make sure that any of your geometry is locked to any of the reference planes that are determining your different length parameters, like a depth or width. So I wanted to move over now. Obviously it's a three-dimensional object, so I wanted to talk a little bit about now dealing with the height parameters. So to determine the height, there's actually two ways to do this, but it's the same end point. So we can go the same route that we did with the length and the depth parameters. We can create a reference plane. So I have a reference plane here for top, and you can, same type of process, go create a label or make sure there's parameter for height, which there is, and create apply a label to that. So then you have 3'6". And then what you do here, so rather than going into creating the modifying the geometry, in order to lock it to that reference plane, you just use the align tool again, align the reference plane to the top of the geometry, make sure you lock it, and then hit escape. And if I go into the parameters, let's say make this 2'6", then the element is now attached to the or locked to that reference plane that you assigned it to. The other way to do it, let me undo this so we don't have the label. So we still have that top reference plane. The other way you can do is if you click on the extrusion and you go over here to the constraints of that extrusion where it says start and end, you can apply a parameter to either of the start point or the end point. So in this case, we want the end point, and the way you do that is you click this Associate Family Parameter button, and then the parameters that are available in here. So in theory, well, let me back up before I get into that. So in this case, we're going to select height, hit OK, and now it's at the 3'6". And it doesn't matter where this reference plane is. I can make this 5 feet or anything, and then it's just, again, it's applied to that parameter. So again, if I go in here, change the parameter of 2'6", this will be adjusted per whatever that parameter is set at. Typically, I like to just use the reference plane as the way to do that, just because it's visual, it's in your face, you can see that. Sometimes some people may not, it might not be easier. Again, I'm always thinking of what's the easiest way for somebody else to deal with a family that I created. So if everything in plan, meaning the length and the depth, are set this way where they're linked to the geometry is linked to a reference plane, I'm going to do the same thing for the height. One other thing where I was just about to go into this here is if you wanted, so for example, if you wanted a cube, rather than saying height, you could literally say depth or width, depending on how you want to do that, and it'll be that same parameter. So basically, you can apply the same parameter. So in this case, what did I just do? The depth, yeah. So the depth parameter is the same, for both here and the width. The other thing too that you can do, just like in the case here, if you wanted a perfect cube, is and you still had the three parameters, you can in the parameters associate a formula, but in this case, again, we want everything to be the depth of 2 feet. You could say you can simply just type in depth, and it's going to change to 2 feet. You can lock it or whatever. You could also do the same thing here for, I'm sorry, I put it in the wrong spot. I mean, I could keep it there, and then also have the depth here as well, and everything would then be a perfect cube. So all the parameters are basically linked to each other. You know, so in theory I could have, and I did, I had this here as well. So whatever I change for here, it'll change in the other two parameters as well. So it'll always be a cube. So if that was the case that you wanted that to be a cube, which in this example I really don't. So let me just change everything back. Let's remove that. And again, we're just going to make a line to the reference plane and then apply the height to the reference plane. Why didn't that? Oh, I forgot to lock it. Yeah. There we go. And just to test, this is very important, is always in the family, when you're messing with parameters like this, is always test the different sizes. You know, because you never know. So once you put it in the project, there may be different ways. You know, you're going to create a new size or something like that, especially if you're doing types. So it's always good to test a few different ways just to make sure everything is acting the way that you want it. So you did notice here, I mean, obviously this is a 3D, you know, it's a 3D model. So I changed the width. Wait, did I change the width or the depth? Width, right? Yeah, width. And you saw here in the elevation, it changed as well. So let me load this into the project, and I'm going to overwrite the existing version and its parameter values. So then this will change. There we go. And we have it again as the 3D element. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is types. So if I go into edit type, there's only actually one type here. So typically what you would do in a project is you would duplicate this type, and actually I'm going to rename this one. So let's just say this type is going to be 3 foot by 4 foot. Actually, let's change this to a 5 foot height. Hit apply. So I'm just going to say 3 foot by 4 foot by 5 foot, and let's do this too. So 3 foot depth, 4 foot width, and 5 foot height. And to tell you the truth, I usually do something like this as well. Just put the foot in inches. You know, you could just make it like 36 inches by 48 inches by 60 inches. You know, however you want to name it. But let's hit OK. So we have one type. Now, if you know, especially I like to always bring up casework. If here's with casework as well, the if you wanted a different type. You know, let's say we wanted a you know, 2 foot by 3 foot and it's 3 foot high. You hit duplicate, change the name. So this would be, what did I say, 3 feet high, say 2 foot width, and let's just say 1 foot 6 inch depth. And then from there, again, I like kind of naming that out because then when I'm in here, 1 foot 6, height 2 feet, and 3 feet. Real quick about input, if you don't know this, if you're dealing with foot and inches, one thing that you can always do is, you know, rather than typing 1 foot 6 inches, which still works, another real quick way is if you just do 1 foot 1 space 6, that'll always read it as foot and then inches. It always defaults to inches. So if you just put 2 feet, if you just inputted 2, it's only going to say 2 feet. If you wanted, like let's just say it was 6 inches, you can type in 6 inches, or you could do 0.6, and it'll do 6 inches as well. So what was this again? 3 feet and 1 foot 6. So just a little quick thing about inputting, and that works when you're doing. You know, if you had a dimension, you're moving an object, and you had a temporary dimension or an actual dimension that you're editing, it works on any input when you're doing any length type of things, and very similar to let's say if you were doing distances and bearings for like property lines, whatever, you know, the degrees, minutes, etc. For that, if you input the number, hit a space, it'll go to that next unit level. So you know, so same thing there. Okay, so we have that here. Now, if I go back to the family, you know, just because I edited it there, it's not going to be edited here. So let me actually close this, and I'll hit save. Now, if I wanted to go back to the family editor, you know, I can open up that file again, but again, it's not going to have these different, you know, types that I have now in the project. So if I open that file just by going File, Open, it'll still say the just example one without the different types. But the other way I can, if I wanted to edit with the parameters, I can go here, go to Edit Family from the project, and now if I go into the parameters, I have those here. And then so like if I made, well, here's the other way you could do it. If you're in the family editor and you wanted to create a new type, you can click New Type in the window. Let's say we want a 2-foot depth by 4-foot width by, let's say, let's make a short one, 2-foot height. Whoop. Kind of hit enter there a little early. 2-foot height. Okay, hit OK. And then we'll edit. And okay, so I have that new kind, hit apply, you know. Oop, hold on, hit the wrong, yeah, I got that should be 2 feet, and the width should be 4 feet. I have it in the wrong order there. There we go. Okay, so now I have it here. If I load it into the project, it says overwrite the existing version or overwrite the existing parameter values. I'm going to hit overwrite the existing version. And let's see here. Okay, so those actually are all in there because they're all family types, and they are all adjusted accordingly to the family they just loaded. When you would do the overwrite with the parameter values, that would be a case like if you had an instance parameter on a parameter, like let's say the height was an instance parameter, that wouldn't update. But you know what? Okay, about 12 minutes. So let me actually show you what I'm talking about. So if we go back here, and let's make, let me think here. How do I want to do this? Because I kind of don't want to undo any of this stuff. Oh, you know what? I know what we can do. Let's create, we'll get into more complex geometry now. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a hole in the middle of this form, just like a 6-inch by 6-inch hole. There's two ways you could do it. You can go to the extrusion, edit the extrusion, create circular hole here in the middle. There is 2 separate extrusions here, so like you can see here, it starts from the bottom, goes up 2 feet. And if I go into 3D view, you may or may not see that depending on which parameter I have, because if I go, let's go to one of the ones that has a higher height. Why did it do that way? Oh, I know, because never mind. It's the actual extrusion. That's right. So that this whole profile, let's call it, is going to go whatever the height is of that that element, or the height parameter. So we have that there. Now if I go back in here, let's go back in here. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Again, I'm going to what I'm going to create, rather than adjusting that extrusion, is I'm going to create a void form. So I'm going to just call it a void extrusion. There's different ones, and we can get into this, but just to keep it pretty simple, we'll say void extrusion. you're going to see it's the same type of control. I'm going to put it in the center. I'm going to say, 5 inches like I did before. Here I have the control of, 0 to 1, 1 foot. Let's hit OK, right? So if I go to 3D view now, you don't see it. But if I click there, you can see it under here. Let me put it actually in shaded view. I want to see if, yeah. Okay, so it's that void is cutting into here, but it's only 1 foot tall, and the parameter for the height of the extrusion is at 2 feet. And let's say I wanted to change. I only have one that's a little, that's 2 feet height. Okay, so let's make this actually 2'6". Right, okay, so this one's actually taller, so it cuts the whole way through. Now if I change this parameter to, what did I do there? Oh, I see. Hold on. I had the wrong ones again. Yeah, so if I change to one of the ones where the parameter is 3 feet tall, it's still under there, but it's not cut the whole way through. So let's go back to front here. So I want to click here, and I'm not too worried about the center stuff. I mean, you can everything's located right now, but the equal, there's some alignment, like, so for example, here actually let me make sure that this thing is centered. So the way you do that with circles is, again, I have it active, I'm going to the line, I want to align it to this center, and the circle should have, oh, I know what it is. Where is it? You want to make sure when you're aligning circles there is a center mark visible on a circle. Okay, so now I have the center mark visible, so I want it to be centered on there. So when I'm aligning the reference planes, you want to make sure that you are aligning it using the center mark. There we go. There's 1, and then 2. So if you had that turned off, you can't align it. You saw that I was trying to align it and it did not work. So no matter what the size is going to be, it's always going to be centered on these two center reference planes. Okay, so getting back to the height, let's go back to the 3D view. And actually, no, go to the front view. So I want to have an instance parameter of what this height is when it's in the project. So I'm going to create a new dimension, and again I'm going off of here, and I want to make sure it's at the top of the geometry of the void. And I need to create a new parameter now to control this. So we're going to say, let's say void height. But this time, rather than saying type, I want it to be instance. So we're going to click instance. It's not going to be, don't worry about all that stuff. We're just going to make it an instance for now. And there we have void height. And so what that allows me to do is, let's actually, the parameters should be in here, right? Yeah, okay, let's make this 4 feet so it's going to cut. All right, so you saw here, actually, hold on. I forgot a step. See, I'm even messing up a little bit here. Sometimes I need to create a reference plane. So we're going to make a reference plane here. See, it's really easy to kind of miss a few of these steps. I'm not going to worry about, I'm going to keep this as a weak reference. I do like to name a lot of my reference planes. It's just easier to kind of understand which one is which. Let's make sure that this is to the reference plane, and then we want to align the top of the void here. Unlock that, okay? And let me see, is that parameter still in here? No, I gotta create it again. Void height. Go, let's make an instance. Hit OK. There we go. And let's make it 4 feet. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to load this into the project, and we're just going to sit. Okay, so now we have that void is in there. But now what you're going to see is, because I made it an instance, so rather than if I go to edit type, you only see depth, height, and width. If you look at here, there is under dimensions a void height. So what that enables me, no matter what type I have here, that void height is always set at 4 feet. But let's say I wanted to change that to 1 feet, I can edit it here without changing the type. So if I change to another type, it's still at 1 foot. If I say I copy this a number of times, copy, say multiple, 2, 2, 3, 4, let's go just back to 3D. Whoop. That also, because it's an instance, I can go in here and say 3 feet, 2 feet, which actually looks the same, but let's change this one to a 3 foot height. 1'6". I mean, you can't really see it, but I mean, you can when you click on these. And let's make this one 5 foot, because change this one to the 5 foot height. So it doesn't matter which one was this, 3 feet? Yeah. If I made this 2'6", then you won't see it. Oop, what happened there? Oh, that's right. I changed that in the. Okay, that's a another good example. Let me go back. What I was saying in terms of, let's just make the default void height 3. Hit OK. If I'm change here, if I go load into project and overwrite the existing version and its parameter values, now that works in terms of that 2'6", because the parameter values now have been updated per what I had in the family. Before, I didn't update. I updated in the family, but I did not update it going into the project, so you didn't see the change from the family put in here because I was updating parameter values. So yeah, so if you update the parameter values when you insert it, then you'll see it change. So I think that's a good place to stop for this one. But yeah, again, if you have any questions or comments or see a better way to do something, please, like this video, comment below, and more importantly, please subscribe to the channel to see any more videos like this. And yeah, so hope everyone's doing well. Until next time, this is Rich the Architect. We'll see you.